Hi, David.
Hi, Elisa. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Good.
Kind of long, this quarantine thing.
I know. I know. It's a pain.
Getting
What?
worse.
Why are you quarantining?
No, not really. Nope. I'm not going out a lot or anything like that. And it's Christmas, right?
Yeah. No, it's smart at this point in time. So, hi, Mary.
Hi, Mary.
You don't have your mic on, Mary. Yeah, you just got to turn on your. There you
Is it
go.
on now?
Now it's on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
How's it going?
All right,
It's good.
how have you been?
Good. Hanging in there.
Yeah, like everybody.
Yeah, that's it. Elisa, you look like you're sitting in the dark today.
I sort of am. So we have 4 hearings.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I had the right number.
And do you have the order?
I do.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, so are your kids back in school, Dave?
They're only in virtual classes.
Ah,
Yeah. My youngest son has one lab that he actually goes to the school for, but other than that, it's all virtual stuff.
mm-hmm. Tough. Hard to do that lab work virtually.
Yeah, exactly. So, but everything else they're able to do. He's not the biggest fan of it. He would rather be at the school, you know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But,
Anyway. I mean, even just to talk to your neighbor or whatever
right.
makes a difference that people are not able to, communicate and all that sort of thing.
Right.
So kind of tough. Are you going to be at home with your family over the holidays?
Yeah. Yeah. We're not going to go anywhere really.
No.
Nope. Just do the home thing
Yep,
like most people.
I think so. How about you, Mary?
Yeah, staying home.
Staying home. Yeah,
Love to be in Tennessee, but you can't do it.
yeah. Would be nice. Would be nice and warmer.
Yeah, we were this time last year,
How long were you there last year?
a week.
Oh, nice. Really nice.
Had Christmas with my son and then came back home and, had it ourselves at home.
What? That's what you need.
Yep, you miss it.
I bet you do, yeah. And
Talking on the phone isn't the same.
no, it isn't the same at all.
Mm.
Are you, do you have grandchildren, Mary?
Yes.
How many in Tennessee?
No, not in Tennessee, around this area, yeah.
Do you see them? Or are you?
Not that much, no.
No. All right. I think it's also hard because it just has such a pervasive impact on all of our lives,
So many people, everybody's afraid. You don't want to give somebody it,
No, you don't. You don't want to give somebody it. Right.
Hi, Jim.
Hi, Sandy.
Jim, it looks like you're muted. Enough. There you go.
Hi,
Good
Sam.
evening, everybody.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, Carol.
Hello.
Hi, did you all have a nice Thanksgiving?
You did.
Good.
How about you?
Very nice. Quiet.
And is there any noise? Is there any noise going around at all anyway?
No, not really.
too much.
All the noise comes out of Washington.
Yeah, I've been tuning that out as much as possible.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Ron.
How you doing, Ron?
Doing fantastic. How's everybody else doing?
Good.
Good, doing good.
Dave, I will be leaving this meeting. I told Sandy at 7:28.
Okay,
7:28. It's a very specific time.
I know.
I have another Zoom meeting at 7:30, so it gives me 2 minutes to figure it out.
You don't want to do two. You don't want to do two at once?
Nope.
Oh,
How thing? Everybody know about the Wareham Garden Club sale on Saturday? It's going to be
Yes.
outside under tents.
What
and
time?
9 o'clock to 12.
Okay, because there's also the Saturday is 10 to 2 is fill a cruiser at I believe Target and Walmart.
Oh, that's a good one to remember too.
And there's fill a school bus outside the fire station on Main Street.
And the second floor of the East Wareham Elementary School is loaded with toys. So probably going to be some kids who get some really nice, have a really nice Christmas.
good,
Oh,
good.
Hi, Michael.
Where is the garden club sale?
Going to be in the St. Patrick's parking lot.
Okay, what time did you say?
9 to 12. They'll have all sorts of handmade sort of greens and wreaths and so on. They have a lot of nice things that they've worked on. It's a very talented group, aren't you, Sandy?
Sandy's not listening.
yes.
I'd like to get a picture up.
I have a meeting too loud.
Yes, speak quieter.
I have to speak quieter.
Why?
That is. Alan's got a Zoom meeting in the other room.
Your computer, Sandy, is getting real
Here.
laggy.
Yeah,
Because of Alan, he's on the good one, isn't he?
yeah, isn't he? Right.
Yes,
Well,
he is.
you need to ask Santa for a new
All right, yeah.
computer.
I think we all know what we need to get Sandy for Christmas.
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
Anyway, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all.
Good evening, Michael.
Yeah, how you doing, Mike?
Hi,
Good,
Mike.
good yourself.
Good.
Good. By the way, Sandy, my mom got your message, so thank you. She's just passing that along. I don't know if she heard me or not. She looks like she walked away.
No,
I think she heard you.
Thank
She
you.
just-
All right,
I did.
okay.
I actually drove by all the sites on our agenda today,
Nice.
the NOI sites anyway.
I made it. I made it by the Jefferson Shore Road
Okay.
this afternoon, just to see kind of what was going on over there.
Yeah,
it was
did
like-
you notice that the house, a couple of houses before it was
57.
also doing construction?
Yeah, 57.
Yeah, 57 and then 67. 67 is the one we're looking at.
Yeah, 67's got a lot of stuff going on already.
Yeah, well, that was basically the subject of a violation, so that's what's happening there.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it seemed like there was a lot of things happening at one time over there.
Right.
Looked like a retaining wall, a couple of porches.
Yeah. Most of which didn't have any, well,
Yes,
all of which
all
didn't
done
have any
without
permitting.
permission.
Yeah, no, I was looking. I was like, I don't remember ever having conversations about that site.
I think we all had the same reaction.
Exactly. That's what we saw yesterday, right?
We did.
now what about 57?
Yeah, we saw that too.
Is that something that's already been through the process?
I'd have to look and see what that specifically was, because I haven't been by there recently. I'd been by 67 a couple times a while back, so I knew what the story was there, but I haven't been by.
57, it looks like they're doing a whole new front porch.
Yeah, okay.
It
Back-
looked like the roof structure from the front porch was being supported by some like 2x10s, and it was deconstructed. So I'm not sure if there's anything that's listed on that property or not.
Yeah, I'll have to take a swing through and check it out.
Hi, Bill. Can't hear anything. Yeah.
Mary, got your kitty baby in your lap.
Oh,
Oh, yes. You
My
on the
kitty baby
computer,
makes
he's
my
there.
Listen,
Wow.
it wouldn't be a meeting without the kitty cat.
No,
No, we have everybody, I think, let's see, Sandy has cats, Mary has a cat. Bill, don't you have a cat too?
I have 2 dogs and a bunch of kids.
There you go.
Yeah, yes, you
Her
do.
husband.
Oh, that's like having 12 cats.
Wow. Love.
Hey, I've had mine 42 years. I think I'll keep him.
Oh.
I mean, at this point, it's been long enough, right?
Oh, yeah. Would not want to have to break in another one.
Not in 2020 anyway. Wait till 2021.
Very true.
well, we have a quorum and it's 6:30. Is Kwame on? I don't see him.
I don't believe so yet.
You want to do attendance, Sandy?
Sorry?
You want to do attendance?
Yeah, in a minute. Welcome to the Wareham Conservation Commission meeting of Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020. We have Ron, Bessie, Carol, Jim, Mary, Alyssa, Sandy, and Michael. So, ready for the first hearing?
Notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. on the request for determination of applicability for the Harlan Morton Story Life Estates care of Lynn Story, care of Lockwood Architects, P.O. Box 95, Onset, Mass. To construct an addition located on Assessor's Map 1, Lot 68866, West Boulevard, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to represent the project?
This was a project that was being represented by Bill Lockwood, so I'm not sure what's going on. I was expecting him to be on tonight, so if he's not here at the moment, we could potentially.
I'll take a motion to table it.
Motion?
second,
Second.
I heard a motion, I heard a second. In favor, table, Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Mary,
yes,
Elissa,
Yes.
Sandy, yes, it's tabled. And
Number-
when Mr. Lockhart joins us, we'll bring it back. Okay, next one, please.
Pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held on Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. on the notice of intent for Richard Grady, care of GAF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Massachusetts, 02571. To install a block retaining wall and parking area located on Assessor's Map 6, Lot 50B, 67 Jefferson Shore Road, Wareham, Mass.
Thank you. Is there anybody here representing this project?
Bill is on the line, which I believe he's here for that, although I'm not hearing him.
I was muted. Am I,
Oh,
am I,
there we
you hear
go.
me now?
You're
Yep.
You got
Okay, yeah,
it.
I'm Bill Madden from GAF on behalf of Rick Grady.
Thank you. Mr. Bichette, your turn.
Okay, this project site is at 67 Jefferson Shores Road. And this notice of intent is a response to a violation that occurred at the site, which involved the installation of a retaining wall and backfill at this site in the buffer zone to a coastal bank with no permits. And there was also some cutting of vegetation on the coastal bank behind the house. A 15 by 24 foot level area was created on the sloped land along the existing paved driveway. This was accomplished by constructing a block retaining wall and backfilling behind it to create the level area. The expanded parking area is within the 30-foot no activity zone to the top of the coastal bank. Also proposed as part of this project is to remove the roof and the second floor of the existing dwelling and to reconstruct the second floor and the roof. The existing foundation and first floor would remain in place in the same footprint. Also, vegetation was cut on the coastal bank itself behind the house. In terms of the expanded parking area, I recommend that this feature be required to be removed as it is a new structure within the 30-foot no activity zone. And it had been proposed, if it had been proposed to the commission initially, I would have recommended that it be denied based on our wetland bylaw. In terms of the cutting of vegetation on the coastal bank, I recommend that a planting scheme or a bank stabilization plan be submitted to plant some appropriate vegetation on the coastal bank to enhance the stabilization of the bank. The existing vegetation should be reevaluated in the spring to determine the survivability of the vegetation that was cut. A lot of that may survive, some of it may not. I just would like to see what happens once we hit springtime. I also recommend the issuance of fines for conducting the work prior to approval. So we did get a DEP number for this project. So I would recommend the issuance of the order of conditions denying the expanded parking area and requiring that it be removed and the area restored to its natural condition. Also, a condition requiring a stabilization plan for the coastal bank, which would include monitoring the survivability of the altered trees and planting some vegetation to enhance the stability of the bank. Allowing the house reconstruction work to proceed, and also the other standard conditions that we normally include. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Madden?
Yeah, I guess with respect to the house, I don't believe any issue with what's to take place there. It's a second story renovation of that existing house, but well, a complete renovation of the house, bulk of the work occurring on the second floor. There is no proposed change in the footprint or the foundation. So we don't really have any issue with that. With respect to the coastal bank at the rear of the property, there had been some vegetation that was cut there at one point in time. I don't know when. The homeowner was telling me that there was a lot of illicit activity going on there at one point in time in the past, and the only way that he could quell that was to remove some of the vegetation and prevent hiding areas for the people that were hanging out around the property on a fairly regular basis. I probably don't agree with the characterization that the bank is not stabilized. There has been some larger trees that were cut, but the bank is intact and is stabilized and is not exhibiting any signs of erosion and what have you. And I don't know, I suppose we could look at the possibility to enhance the coastal bank there. But if you look into that neighborhood as a whole and that all those coastal banks that exist down in there, they're predominantly lawn and landscape featured types of landscape. So, I don't know how beneficial the planting would be, given the fact that the bank is currently stable. And
I was just recommending something in case some of the stuff that was cut doesn't survive come springtime. So without really knowing, that's why I'm asking about that. If everything survives, then there may not be a need to do a whole lot, but I want to have it out there that in case it's needed, that it's going to be something that could be required.
Okay, I misunderstood on that one. I think that's, so really you want to assess the cuttings and see if they're sprouting off the stumps, and if they're rejuvenated to some degree, that's what you're looking to see in the spring.
Yeah, and if there's any signs of erosion
Yeah.
at that point, then we would have to address it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and with respect, that's fine. I don't think we don't have an objection to that. With respect to that block wall, that area is about 30 feet from the edge of the parking lot to where the block wall is. And I think if you were to look at some Google imaging, you'll see that entire area has been historically used for parking and access around the side of that garage. We're not trying to make an excuse for building the wall and what have you, but I think what Mr. Grady felt was better was to have a level parking area there that would not create an unstable surface for parking or walking on. There is also access around the side of that garage that I think that some aerial imagery that we looked at showed that there might have been some kayaks or canoes or things like that stockpiled or placed along the side of the garage. But we think that the placement of that block wall really provides a little bit more security to the bank and prevents further erosion from just land use land use of the property. I mean, there's not a strict prohibition for using the land that is in that buffer zone, but placement of the wall, I agree, is something that should not have taken place without authorization by the commission. I think that the block wall, the way it is, though, it enhances the stability of that bank in that area, given the way it's been used in the past. And we would hope that the commission would consider allowing that wall to remain in its current position.
Thank you.
You'll also note
can-
the house is in, a portion of the house in the back patio, that is all in, a portion of it is in the 30-foot no activity zone as well. So it's not an activity zone that hasn't been altered by the house or the use of the property.
To clarify something before I ask the members, the alteration that occurred by the wall, isn't that on somebody else's property?
There's a limit of disturbed area that is shown that is over the property line.
I
That
think
dotted line that says limits of disturbed area, is that what you're referring to?
No, I think it goes beyond that. I took some pictures during the summer, and I see it at least 5 to 6 feet beyond the wall.
Yeah, I think that
has
might
been
be.
disturbed. And that's
Yeah, I
in
think
someone
that might
else's
be
property.
accurate. If you look at that, I don't know, the southerlymost property line there, there's a note that says limits of disturbed area, and it shows it it's a 10 scale plan. It shows it something in the order of 5 feet of alteration of the neighboring property map, lot 550.A.
Okay, I thought it was beyond that limit of disturbed area down the slope. It was just no vegetation left on it. But okay, I'm gonna ask Ron, any questions?
So I guess my first question, when did all of this work start?
I think it started sometime this summer. I'm not really sure on the dates.
Yeah, the
Okay.
block wall work and that was really more towards the end of the summer and into the fall. It wasn't all that long ago, but somewhere around that time frame, although I don't have an exact date.
Okay. I had something else in mind. You can go on to the next. I have something else that I'm trying to think of wording right. So you can go on and I'll go back to it.
Hey, Carol,
No question.
Jim,
Nothing, thank you.
Mary,
Nothing else at this time.
Elissa.
Okay, so I have one question, I think, and that is that we had talked about denying the fact of the driveway. And so when talking about that, David, are we talking about putting things back the way they were?
Yes, that's what I'm recommending.
Okay, and just what would be the substance that would be layering over that driveway area? You know, I mean,
Well, I think the area where the new block wall and filled area that's the subject to the violation, I think that was predominantly just a sloped grass area. That's really all it really was beforehand.
And then my other question would be for Sandy, that talking about the area that's been impacted that's over the property line. I would guess that the property owners of next door have never been informed of this, or are they there now? It's kind of odd. You know, people don't usually like their land to be dug up by other people.
It's my understanding that Mr. Grady was going to just restore that disturbed land when he was done. It's also my other understanding that the neighbor next door is aware of the activity that took place. And I don't know if he was pleased or displeased about it at all, but my understanding is that they've agreed to at least remedy the disturbed area when the wall was completed. That, I think, was what I was told.
Michael, any questions?
I think I'm fine for now. Thank you.
Ron, did you get your question sorted
Yeah,
out?
so in respect to the 30-foot no activity zone, I know that a portion of the existing dwelling is sitting in that 30-foot no activity zone, but because it was pre-existing, work could be allowed to happen. But in respect to the wall and driveway, that is technically considered a new structure, new area. So based on the bylaws, that wouldn't have been allowed, even if it had come before us to make a decision on that. Am I correct, Dave?
That would have been my recommendation. Yes, that's what the bylaw states, and that's what the commission, generally should be trying to adhere to. But yes, that would have been my recommendation had it been presented to us beforehand.
Okay, no, so I just wanted to have that. I wanted to make sure I understood that correctly, that the house being existing, is one thing, but where it's a new structure with the wall and what have you, that is something that's complete. Okay, so that was my question. I just wanted to understand that while I'm thinking about what we're talking about in respects to the wall and whatnot.
Yeah, the wall, the house and the patio in the back, those were all pre-existing structures prior to, the 30-foot no activity zone requirement. So those would be technically, if you want to say, grandfathered as existing features. So you're right. So that would be existing, and anything new is the subject that we have to review relative to the bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Bill, any idea how much fill was placed in behind that stone wall?
No, I don't.
Okay, so we don't know how much it is and what type of fill.
Well,
Um,
the fill would predominantly be granular fill material with crushed stone on the top of it. I don't believe he was planning on paving it. So it will still provide some infiltration in a little better form than what existed previously. I mean, with that sloped area, most of that surface water runoff from that paved driveway in the garage roof downspouts, if they splashed at grade, would just really run down slope. At least with this flat area, if it's backfilled with a sandier material and crushed stone on the top, we'll have at least some recharge to the groundwater occurring in that area that isn't occurring to the degree that it possibly could. And couple that with the use that could go on that slope, regardless. I mean, if the guy's been using it for a driveway and parking on that slope, I would tend to think they would continue on in that. And I think that this wall does, and I agree with you that it is in the 30-foot no activity zone. I can't dispute that, but I also think that it might provide a little better situation than what existed prior to the wall being constructed, and will probably provide some better long-term stability of the bank by providing a flat level surface to be used.
Okay. Did he change the makeup of that wall? When I went out earlier, it was a much lighter color wall than it is today. He didn't change the material in the wall, did he?
On the blocks?
Yeah.
No, not that I'm aware of, no.
So
I mean, I don't know if they leached it over the past couple of months or whatever, but I'm not certain on that.
Oh, they went from light color to dark color, and I was just
Oh,
saying.
that wouldn't be
yeah,
leaching.
No. If that wall was not built and that fill was not done, what type of slope did he have from the existing paved driveway down the soil, the lawn? I see a
Well,
line
from
for
the edge of the
28.
pit, from what I can make out, we have a contour elevation of 28 just at the outside edge of the existing paved driveway. And then
And it
at
went
the
down.
then at the wall, it goes from 26 to 25 to 24. So the slope ranges from 2 to 4 feet in about 30 feet. So it's reasonably steep.
So if the recommendation is that that stone wall be removed, the backfill removed, and the lawn reseeded, including the disturbed area on someone else's property. So he would, if we say he has to go back to what it was before he put in any fill or put in any of that stone wall in the 30-foot, he would be back to where he was parking on some grass on a slope.
Yes.
Wow.
You can also park along the roadway. That seems to be what a lot of people do on Jefferson Road.
Yeah, I think that people do park there as stated. I don't know what occurs on the property with the people that reside there or how it's handled, but I mean, from a convenience point of view, that's would be more convenient than being on the street, much safer for that matter. Wouldn't obstruct the right of way in any respect. And I think that's important in an area such as that, because in the summertime, as you know, those summer communities tend to get overpopulated with people. There's a lot of on-street parking, and it doesn't create the safest situation for emergency vehicles or passenger vehicles for that matter.
Sort of like
He-
downtown.
He
Sort of
has
like.
also some capability of parking closer to the front of the house. It doesn't have to be on a paved, never mind, that's another issue. So
Sandy,
what,
excuse me,
what,
question
yeah.
for you. How long has that asphalt been there?
The
Is that
existing
right?
paved driveway,
Yes.
I'm not sure of that. I don't know the answer.
The existing paved driveway, I think, has been there, for quite a long time. That's like an historic driveway that's always been there.
A historic driveway, wow.
Well, I mean, in terms of as long
I
as the
know,
house, as
thank
long
you.
as the house,
Yeah.
In other words, it's not new.
Yeah. Right, right.
Anything else from the board before I ask for public?
Nothing
Is
for
there
me.
anybody on the line that'd like to speak for or against this project? Hearing none. Mr. Bichette's recommendation is that the wall be removed, the fill behind the wall be removed, the lawn be restored, and the, regarding this coastal bank, wait until the spring to see what comes back. If the plants do not come back, ask for a planting plan and fines for working for doing the work prior to approval. Is that a summary?
Yes.
I heard nobody wanted to talk about this project, so unless someone's got questions, we can close the hearing.
I move that we close the hearing.
Second,
Second, I heard Jim first. Ron,
yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Elisa,
Yes. Ooh.
Sandy, yes, the hearing is closed.
So,
Hey, Dave,
Yeah.
question for you. So you're recommending some sort of a fine for the starting of the work. Do you have a fine figure number that you're thinking, or is it based on how many violations there are? What's the thought process behind that?
The commission can fine anywhere from $50 to $300 a day per violation. So it's really how the commission feels a fine should be assessed based on the type and nature of the violation.
So there's a $300 fine for any work requiring conservation approval in wetlands or within the 30, 50-foot no work zone plus full restoration if they've done the work for both the homeowner and the contractor. Now, one of the things we could do, correct me if I'm wrong, we can very well give them a time frame to complete this work. And if they don't, $300 a day past that deadline.
Yes, that's correct.
Because right now we're limited to a $300 fine for working without approval. Do we put a time, we have to put a time frame to remove the wall and the fill
that's,
and restore the banking.
and
What type of time frame, Dave?
I would give him some time because, we're in a season that you never know what the weather's going to be like. So if that's where the commission goes with it, then I would say you'd want to give 3 months anyway to allow him to do the work. And somehow you'd have to put some erosion control blanket or something down because you're not going to be at a point in time where you could plant grass because it'll be during the winter.
wouldn't it be better to give him a full 6 months just because, at this point, we really don't know what the weather's like, and it could freeze up tomorrow. And, him coming back to ask us, but if we do it for 6 months, then come May, by April, he should be able to do work.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly fine if the commission wants to say, restoration must be completed by, May 1st or April 15th, whatever the board feels is appropriate, then I think that's fine.
And
Yeah,
we can
I
say
think-
that sorry, once the wall is removed and the material behind it removed, we must have an erosion control something, blanket.
Yeah, well, again, if it's in the spring, as soon as the removal occurs, they can just plant it and, put some erosion control around the perimeter until it grows in.
Now, right now, we have a lot of disturbed material and that silk fence is useless. Should we insist on putting hay bales up against the silk fence right now until he removes the stone wall?
I would say that is, again, certainly appropriate, and it probably, unless the neighbor's okay with it, should be pulled up against the property line. Unless the disturbed area is
believe this is
still being encompassed by the erosion control, then you'd want to, I guess, keep it there.
Yes, the erosion control would probably pull onto our neighbor's property to prevent that loose soil from running down into their yard.
Right, then that's fine to require the hay bales too. That would have been part of the order.
But the hay bales have to go in now.
Yep.
And they have until April 15th to restore the site.
Sounds good.
Who wants to take a shot at the order of conditions?
Well,
Now, we're talking about the whole project now, or are we just talking about the violations first and then voting on the rest of the project? Is it together as one, or are we doing two
It's
separate
all,
things?
that's all one
Okay.
order of conditions.
Okay, just
Because
wanna,
doing the house has nothing to do with us.
okay,
So we're only talking at restoring the land.
okay. Just wanna make sure that I'm, being complete understanding.
so,
Dave, did I understand? We're just talking about the violations and the restoration of land to what it was before the violations occurred.
Right, yeah, and of course, the house reconstruction portion is something that could be, approved as part of the project. That's going to go on anyway. So, that's going to be included as part of the approved plan that we see and that we're going to vote on, minus whatever the commission doesn't allow.
All right.
so
Alyssa, did I hear you say you're willing to take a shot?
I'm willing to take a shot with a little help. Yes, I am. I move that we deny the 15 by 20 foot land created that Dave mentioned, that we remove the stonework that is within the 30-foot limit, that we assess cuttings and assess the land in the spring to see whether or not a formal planting plan has to be presented to us. And let's see.
Removal of the fill.
Removal of the fill, right, that was added behind the stone area. And then it would be the addition of hay bales in order to protect the slope for this winter, and that the project would have to be redone by, I would say, May 15th, 2021. Does anybody want to add to that, or?
And the requirement of an erosion control blanket.
And that blanket would be placed as soon as the wall is taken. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
Anything else?
Standard order of plus the standard order of conditions.
Right. And we also, David said we would like to include approval of the house changes, especially the second floor.
Well, second floor is beyond us, but
So,
yeah, so, yep. Did I hear it all?
And
Yes,
if
yeah.
there's any consideration for a fine, that should be included in the motion also.
Yes,
all right.
so,
My feeling is that by May 15th, if the project isn't done, then there has to be a fine of $300 a day.
yes,
barring any major problem.
Plus a $300 fine for doing the work before approval.
Yeah, so a $300 fine now for starting the project, and then if it's not completed by the 15th of May, it would be including $300 additional per day until the project is complete.
Right.
Yes,
Can we do less than $300 a day?
yes, we can.
You could, but I don't know if there's motivation to get it done if you lessen the fine.
$150 a day isn't pretty motivating. All right, $300 a day, you know.
Well, we're giving them 6 months.
Yeah, we are.
So I think $300 a day, if they can't complete it in 6 months, then $300 a day is more than reasonable.
Thank
If they
you.
were only getting 3 months, I'd say let's lower the fine, but my feeling is $300 a day is reasonable when you have 6 months to do it.
Okay,
Okay, so that be the motion.
Second,
I have a second from Jim. All in favor, Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Melissa,
yes.
Sandy. So, Mr. Madden, there you go.
A resounding defeat. Okay, thanks very much for your time on this one. Appreciate it very much. I'll pass the word on to Mr. Grady tomorrow morning.
Hey,
Thank you.
next, please.
Okay, notice of public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protected Bylaw. The public hearing will be held on Wednesday, December 2nd, 2020 at 6:30. Notice of intent for Michael Landers, care of GAF Engineering, Inc., 266 Main Street, Wareham, Massachusetts, 02571. To extend a pier located on Assessor's Map 51, Lot N20, 280 Comisset Road, Wareham, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Is there anybody here for this project?
Bill Madden from GAF Engineering here on behalf of the applicant.
Your turn. Oh, Kwame King. So for the record, Kwame has arrived. But he's on mute.
Okay, so this project site is at 280 Cremisa Road. This notice of intent is filed as an after-the-fact filing for an extension to a pier. Recently, we had a request for a certificate of compliance for this pier project, and when we were reviewing it, it was found that the pier was built about 14 to 15 feet longer than what was permitted. So the applicant has filed this notice of intent to try to have this additional length of the pier formally approved by the commission. So the approved structure was 150 feet in total length. The pier was built at 165 feet in total length. So it appears that one additional set of pilings was installed, and the sets are roughly 15 feet apart. So the applicant, again, is trying to get the structure into compliance and formally approved by the commission. The overall size of the pier, ramp and float is within what is allowed in terms of the length and width under our wetland bylaw. We did receive comments from the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries, and they had no recommendations or issues with the proposal. So there is no actual work to be done on this. This is just simply to try to get this additional length formally accepted by the commission. There was also a deck that had been constructed at the landward end of the pier when we originally got the certificate of request compliance to review. And again, that was not permitted. That has since been removed. We did get a DEP file number for the project, so I would recommend the issuance of the order of conditions, allowing the additional length, but also including a fine for building the structure longer than what was originally approved in the first place.
Bill,
I don't think we have anything to add.
questions from the board? Ron,
No, I think it's pretty simple.
Carol,
No questions.
Jim,
No question.
Mary,
No question.
Elissa?
Same homeowner building the pier as is there now?
Well, the original homeowners have actually passed away, and I think this is now part of the heirs to the original owners. So the original pier was built some time ago, and they just never came in to get a certificate of compliance until I think the property is looking to be sold. Is that correct, Bill?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So that's where we are with it.
One more question, that is, there was a lot of talk the last couple of meetings about having walkways with piers so that people can walk under them or over them. Does this comply with that?
I believe this pier, it is high enough so that people can walk under it. I've been there, and it's definitely
Okay,
elevated.
okay. Nothing else.
Hey, Michael, any questions?
Yeah, just one thing. I was there today, and those are the, so correct me if I'm wrong, they're just going to extend it to the piles that are out there now, is that correct? Or is this going to go actually further?
No, it's what you see there is already the extended pier. There's no further work to be done.
Oh, all right, then, okay, nothing else said, I'm good.
Kwame, any questions? I think he's still on mute.
No questions.
Thank you. I have nothing. Is there anybody online that would like to speak for or against this project? Hearing none.
Close the hearing.
Second.
Close the hearing.
I heard a second. All in favor. Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Mary,
Yes,
Elissa, Sandy, yes. Hearing is closed. When we approve the standard order conditions, please add a $300 fine for doing the work without a permit. So I'll take a motion, please.
Motion.
Motion to accept. Do you want, is that acceptable just to say that?
Yes.
We need with a standard order of conditions plus a $300 fine.
So motion to accept with the standard order of conditions, adding a $300 fine for the additional work.
Yes. Yes.
Second.
Second. Well, I heard a second. All in favor, Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
yes,
Mary,
yes,
Elissa, Sandy, yes. So right now is that once these order of conditions are completed, will then, I guess, next meeting come back for a certification of compliance? Is that the game plan?
Yes, I think that's the way they want to go, that they first would record the order of conditions and then request the certificate of compliance after that.
Okay. Because I'm sure they'd like to have that house sold. I saw Mr. Lockwood online. Do
Thanks,
you
Bill.
want to dismiss?
Okay, thank you all.
Or-
Thanks, Bill.
So we need a motion to untable.
Motion to
Lynn
on
Story
table. Motion to on
project.
table.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Melissa,
Okay.
Sandy. It's untabled. We did read the notice, so Mr. I guess, Bill must be here. Mr. Lockwood is here, right?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
So. Okay, Dave, it's up to you.
All righty. So the project site is at 66 West Boulevard in Onset, and the project involves the construction of an addition in the buffer zone to a coastal bank. A portion of the existing dwelling and a portion of existing concrete patio are to be removed, and a new addition is to be constructed in the same general location. A 6 by 13 foot portion of the house is to be removed, and a new 8 by 16 foot addition is proposed, and this is approximately 75 feet from the top of the coastal bank, which is on the other side of West Boulevard. Additional sections of concrete patio are also to be removed and turned into landscape areas so that there would be a slight reduction in the overall impervious area at the site. Erosion controls should be installed to contain materials on the site. The work proposed is in the back corner of the lot, which is the furthest area away from the resource area. So I would recommend the approval of the project with a negative determination number 2 for the project.
Thank you. Mr. Lockwood, anything to add?
No, I'm in agreement with Mr. Bichette, and I apologize to the board for my tardy arrival. Hope we can move forward.
Questions?
I have no questions.
Carol,
No,
Jim,
I have no questions.
Mary,
No question.
Alyssa, Michael,
None.
Kwame,
No questions.
Sandy has no questions.
Close
Did
the-
I,
move to close.
anybody here online that would like to speak for or against this project?
Could I ask a question, please?
Yes,
My name
and
is,
who are
my
you?
name is Denise Hickson. I am a neighbor of this project. My question is, I just wanted to understand what types of mitigation we have in place in the town to prevent runoff into the bay as this project continues, and to ensure that all of those regulations are followed.
Mr. Bichette?
Yeah, so as I had mentioned, we're going to require that there be an erosion control barrier put in place during the construction. So that would be containing the work by placing some material over here. So this work area would be contained. And then obviously, once the addition is in place and the landscaping completed, then there is not going to be any erosion issue.
Right.
So that's essentially what would take place during the project.
And so erosion control is like hay bales or things like that.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Denise, anybody else?
Yes, my name is John Kelligrew. I'm the abutter right next door to this thing. It's about 2 feet from my property. So you just pointed that you were doing all this stuff on the other side. They're digging up the cement on the side that's next to my property. How are they doing that without having all sorts of things in place there. It runs downhill that way. That's where the rain runs. It's downhill from, and there's the sewer, the town sewer is right in front of my house, right there by the steps.
So you number 64?
I am.
Yeah. Bill, can you respond how things are going to be addressed along this property line right here?
Yes, we're actually pulling the new project, the new building will be back further from the property line than it currently is, John. And along the bottom edge of the property would be where we would erect the siltation barrier so that any of that disturbance in that corner abutting you gets contained on site and pushed away from you.
This is the view of the existing situation right now, as you see. And the project would then result in this configuration. So as you can see on the existing plan, there's pavement here, which is going to be removed, and then that's all going to get turned into landscape area. So Bill, you're gonna have to put some sort of an erosion barrier along this edge during construction.
Yeah, along the property line and at the street line. Then once landscaping is established, the runoff will actually be slowed down, of course, because it'll be landscape rather than paving.
So we are reducing the hardscape.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Kelligrew?
It kind of does. I'm not clear now. What's being left? This whole thing is tarred now, and it's one piece that goes right to my house. It's all one continuous piece. It's not separated. There's no fence. There's no anything. What is being done, and how is it like? Is it we're leaving some of the tar up front here near West Boulevard?
Yes, they'll be leaving a parking space and 2 parking spaces right there at the street.
And how about this part, the very top left is grass right now. Do you see where it's an extra line? Is that still grass?
I'm not sure where are you talking, John?
No one's seeing my pointer. Top left of the log, corner log.
Over here?
Yeah, that's grass right now.
Okay, well that's grass. Yes, on your side of the line, it's grass, and there is a little bit of grass right there that would get paved. Yes.
Is it staying grass or is it?
That would be paved at that point.
So that whole thing's paved now. So they're adding pavement and taking away pavement here. So why are we doing this for here? Just to meet the percentages of something? Is that we're disrupting all this?
Dave, will you take it back to the current condition?
We're reducing we're increasing the amount of pervious surface. So in general, that was the thing. Plus we want to provide a decent parking area there.
So that area that's slashed cut, that's got slash marks on it, that right now is pavement,
Yes.
concrete. That will be removed and replaced with landscaping.
Correct.
Yes.
Could be grass or whatever. So that is reducing the amount of runoff off the property.
Correct.
There's also some additional concrete back here, which is being removed and landscaped. So when you see the proposed, you can see that there's all this area is going to be removed.
Turn into soil.
Correct.
I think it already is.
Is what's on this side going to be like hardscape or landscape? Up on the north side, I guess it is.
The north side
Go
abutting your
back to the
property.
proposed one.
The slashed area, is that gonna be hardscape or is it gonna be grass or?
Okay. Watch while Dave puts up the proposed plan.
Yeah, so on the plan, it
Yes.
just says proposed landscape area. So Bill, do you know what specifically they're placing there? Is it gonna be lawn or something of that nature or some sort of planted area?
I don't think we've finally established that it's going to be some sort of pervious, but let's say sod in lieu of another answer.
Yeah, well, pervious is bricks, right? That are put down there?
Doesn't have to be.
No, we're saying it's going to be sod, plant material.
It has to be plant material, okay. Well, they've never mowed their lawn in 50 years, so now they're putting more stuff that they're not.
We don't know what they're putting in it, but they propose landscape area.
All right.
Mr. Lockwood doesn't know exactly what's going in there, but it will not be concrete or cement because they said it's going to be landscaping.
Yeah, but landscaping can be those bricks that, join together, right? That's pervious as well, right? Or not?
That's
It's
called
pervious.
hardscaping.
So Bill, what you're saying is it is gonna be planted. It's not gonna be a hardscape.
Yes, plant material rather than hardscape, yes.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the audience? Anybody else
Yes.
on board?
Yeah, I just have one more question. This is Denise Hickson. I spoke earlier. I apologize for bringing up one other question. So in previous projects that we've had done in this neighborhood, there's been a lot of parking on the grass across the street from West Boulevard of construction vehicles, cars, etc. That's a no parking area. There's no parking on that side of the street. And there's, in some spots along that embankment, there is erosion. So my question is, do we have anything in place to enforce that construction vehicles don't park directly across West Boulevard on that grass so that we maintain the integrity of that bank? It's just
Is
been
there
a-
a no, sorry, is
It's
there
no
a no
parking.
parking, is there a no parking sign on that, on the water side?
Yes, yes,
Then
there
you
is no
call the
parking.
police. It's
Okay.
something that we can't control that, but to me, if you have an issue, I would call the police and say, we have an issue with violating parking. That's the
Okay,
best I can do for you, Denise.
thank you. I appreciate your information.
Anybody else?
Who did you say we call? The police? Is that right?
If they're parking illegally, who do you call?
Well, I prefer not to call anybody. I prefer to, be nice and handle it, but it doesn't usually work. I mean, we just had a project on the other side of my house that went on for a year. So it got tired to calling people, that's all. I don't want to
Yeah.
yell off my lawn,
Yeah.
but that's what
You
happens.
see,
Okay,
John, there's nothing we can do. It's outside of what we can control on for this project.
I get it. No, I get it. I asked you who we call, that's all. I mean, like I said, that's who I guess I call the police, that's all.
Or who controls the parking in Onset? Natural Resources?
Actually, it's the department, the guy, the Wareham, the harbor master and
Yeah.
those guys.
Department of Natural Resources, Gary
Yeah.
Buckminster.
Which seems to be in close concert with the commission, the conservation
Yep.
board, right,
Okay,
with natural resources.
anybody else? Hearing none, I'd like to take a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, Ron,
yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes,
Melissa. She's gone. Sandy, yes, so the hearing is closed. I need a motion to grant a -2.
Motion to grant a -2 determination.
Thank you.
second,
I have a second. All in favor, Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes,
Sandy, yes. And so, no, nothing gets done until you contact Mr. Pichette for the documents, okay?
Very good. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. All right. The next hearing. Alyssa's gone. Dave, can I read it?
Yes.
The same pursuant of the provisions that's always been read. Notice of intent for Marissa and Carmen Smith and Kara Brayman Surveying and Associates LLC, 61 Allen Street, Marion, Mass. 02738, to razz an existing garage and construct an addition deck and expand a driveway located on Assessor's Map 28, Lot 1002, 4C Meadow Lane, Wareham. Is there anybody here for that project?
Yes, I'm pretty sure Rob Brayman was on the line for this.
I'm here. Excuse me, Rob Brayman from Brayman Survey and Associates. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you. Yep.
Right
I
on.
just get the
Okay,
plan
Mr.
up.
Bichette, your turn.
Okay. So this project site is at 4 Sea Meadow Lane, and the project involves the demolition of an existing garage and the construction of a new addition with a garage under and driveway expansion. And this is within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and also within a coastal flood zone. The site is also within the estimated habitat of rare and endangered species. An existing 16 by 26 foot garage is to be removed, and a new breezeway and 28 by 34 foot addition is proposed in the same general area. And this is approximately 85 feet from the edge of the wetland and within a flood zone, which is a velocity flood zone, VE elevation 19. The driveway is proposed to be expanded to match up with the new addition as shown. The addition would be elevated on stilts as this site is within a velocity flood zone. The parking would be underneath the proposed addition. The driveway would be surfaced with crushed shells. The existing underground propane tank is to be relocated. I did have a question about that in terms of where that would end up, because it's not necessarily shown on the plan unless I'm just not seeing it. So I just had a quick question on that. The addition and the driveway expansion are all outside the 30-foot no activity zone. Hay bales and silt fence are proposed between the work and the resource areas. We did receive a letter from Mass Natural Heritage on this project, and they had no negative comments about the project. We did receive a DEP file number, so I would recommend the issuance of the order of conditions with the standard conditions and the added condition that the driveway remain as a pervious material such as crushed shells as has been proposed.
Yes.
Okay, as far as the propane tank, it's going to be, I would say, relocated pretty close to its location right now. So it misses the addition, and the gas line would be somewhere between there and the septic system to get back to its location at the existing house.
So kind of up in that corner, you're saying?
Yes, yes, between there and the hay bale line.
So right around here?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else, Rob, to add?
No, I think I'm good right now.
Can you do me a favor on the document you sent us for your notice on intent on page 19? Can Can you put the correct project location and applicant there? Your
What did I do?
narrative is correct, but you have 34 Mayflower Ridge.
Oh, geez, sorry about that. That was page 19?
I think it was 19.
I'll find it.
Thank you.
I'll get that right over to Dave tomorrow morning.
You forgot to finish your cutting and pasting all the way.
I know, huh?
That's all right.
Sorry, that's what I do is read documents.
That's good, thank you.
Okay, questions on Ron,
No questions.
Carol,
No questions.
Jim,
No questions.
Mary,
No question.
Michael,
I'm good.
Kwame.
No questions.
It's a VE 18. So how high up does it have to go off the ground? 22, 23 feet?
The VE 19, that would be the top of the actual structure, foundation structure would be at 19.
And
then
the foundation structure is the under the garage, under the
Yes.
addition.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody online who would like to speak for or against this project? Hearing none. I need a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Thank you, and thank you. I heard it second. All in favor, Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy. The hearing is closed. We need a motion for a standard order of conditions plus the driveway remains. Someone needs to make that motion.
I move that we accept the project with a standard order of conditions with the addition of the driveway remaining a previous material.
Thank you.
Second.
I had second. All in favor, Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Sandy. Yes, so you have your approval, Rob. Please don't do anything until you get the paperwork from Mr. Bichette.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Lynn Bell. Is there anybody here for that project?
How you doing? Jason Younquist from Outback Engineering.
Jenna Hudson and Connor Fleming.
Okay. All right, Mr. Bichette.
Okay, I'm just bringing the plan up here.
Did we get a DP filing?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Okay, so this site is at 50 Great Neck Road, and the project involves upgrading a septic system in the buffer zone to watering vegetated wetland. The existing system is to be replaced with a new Title V nitrogen-reducing system. The new leach field is approximately 66 feet from the edge of the wetland. We had discussed this at the last meeting, but at the time, we did not have the DEP file number, which we do now have. So I would recommend the issuance of the order of conditions with the standard conditions for the project. And this has already been approved by the Board of Health.
Jenna, Jason, anything to add?
No, I think we answered all the questions at the last meeting, and we're just waiting on the DEP file number.
Okay,
No questions from us. Thank you.
thank you. Ron,
No questions.
Carol,
No questions.
Jim,
No questions.
Mary,
No question.
Michael,
Done.
Kwame,
No questions.
Sandy, no questions. Is there anybody on the line that would like to speak for or against this project? Hearing none, I'd like to someone make a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close the hearing?
Second.
Second, I heard a motion and a second. All in favor, Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Mary,
Yes,
Sandy, the hearing's closed.
I have a motion to accept the project with the standard order of conditions.
I have that motion.
second,
I heard a second. All in favor, Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
yes.
Mary.
Yes.
Sandy, done. So please see Mr. Bichette before you start the work.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good evening.
Two.
Next hearing. Scott and Laura Christofoli.
We have gotten a request on that to continue that hearing to July 21st. And the reason for that is this was a proposed pier project and they had not gotten the eelgrass survey done in the appropriate seasonal timeframe. So they really can't proceed until they get that done. So they're asking for us to continue the meeting until July 21st. Now, I mentioned to them that because it's such a long way off, that we would have to re-advertise this as we got nearer that date, and the abutters would have to be re-notified, which they've agreed to.
So do you want us to continue until July 21st?
Yes, July 21st.
Is that what
of
I'm hearing?
2021, yep.
so moved.
Second.
I have before we continued, is there anybody online that'd like to speak for or against this project? Okay, I heard a motion and a second to continue the hearing until July 21st, 2021. Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Mary,
Yes,
Sandy, we're done. We'll continue until 7/21. Okay. Borrego,
We've gotten a request to continue both of these hearings until our next meeting, which is December 16th. So I would recommend the continuance of those two projects to the 16th.
so moved.
Second.
I heard a motion and I heard it so moved and a motion and a second and all in favor of continuing until December 16th. Ron,
Just see if there's anybody online that has a
Carol.
question.
oh, sorry, is there anybody here that would like to speak for this project? I'm sorry, I'm pushing. I'm hearing none. So Ron,
Yes.
vote to continue until Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
yes.
Mary,
Yes,
Sandy. Yes, we're continued until the 16th. When are we having Nickerson back on?
The 16th.
Thank you. I forgot. Okay, so that makes all of our public hearings are done. So we are want to do the, can I ask, is there anybody here for the certification of compliance? Michael Cheney? Dave, is that ready to be approved?
Yes, it is. That was for the construction of a single-family house at the address on Glen Charlie Road. The project has been completed according to the order of conditions, so I would recommend that certificate of compliance.
Somebody say so moved.
Motion, so moved.
Second.
Thank you. And I heard a second. All in favor? Ron?
Yes. Yes.
Carol?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
And Sandy? Okay. Now we can go on to the enforcement orders. Dave?
Yes, so the first one is the enforcement order for Boone Ferry, who is on the line. This involved work at this site in terms of clearing underbrush vegetation on the coastal bank at this site. So we had a discussion about this at a previous meeting, and some of the members wanted to go down to the site and take a look at it, which we did have a site visit last week with a couple of the commission members and the owner and Brian Grady from GAF Engineering. So it was my recommendation previously that a notice of intent should be filed to address the violation and to provide a restoration plan for the alteration and also to identify the wetland resource areas. While we were there the other day, it was also noted that there was another area that wasn't identified previously, where there's been the stockpiling of material and whatnot that, again, should not have been going on there. So I'm going to just put up a couple of photos of that. So this is sort of on the opposite side of this overall property. And this is basically right up at the edge of the coastal bank. And again, obviously, new activity, new material that really shouldn't be there. So anyway, that's the subject of this discussion. And as I said, Mr. Ferry and Brian Grady from GAF are here to discuss.
Hi, everybody.
So,
How are you?
Mr. Ferry, you want to start?
It's up to you guys. Do you want to start with one thing and we'll work on that and then go to the next, or?
Sure.
So the area that I mowed, the underbrush, everybody saw it. And I'm still under the assumption that it's all growing back, and the board members that were there were able to see that there was anywhere from 12 to 24 inches of new growth covering the entire area. So I still am in the position where I don't think replanting is necessary. I didn't take out any trees. All I took out was vines and underbrush, and all the vines and underbrush are growing back.
Yeah, evening. This is Brian at GAF Engineering. I was at the on-site last week, and I went out back out today to the site at Dave's suggestion to view that second area. But for a discussion of this first area here, if you haven't been to the site, you can see the pictures. What Boone did is he got in there with some equipment and mowed the underbrush. But as he said, he didn't take any trees down. He didn't take up any roots. The roots are all in place, and I did walk back to this area again today. The vegetation is coming back. I think, I don't know what that mowing goes down to an initial height boom, maybe 6 inches, something like that.
Yeah,
But
it's, yeah,
it is back, it is 18, 24 inches in height for that vegetation. It's coming back, and we believe if it's just allowed to regrow, it will revegetate itself. So, yes, there was a violation, but there was no trees taken down on the coastal bank, just the mowed vegetation. So the bank is still in a stable condition after the heavy rains of, I'm not sure when the initial violation kept place. I believe it was many months ago. We've gone through several heavy rains. There's no evidence of erosion occurring that I can see. So I believe the area will revegetate naturally without causing any direct impacts to that adjacent wetland. So additional plantings, yes, they could be requested, but I believe it will revegetate on its own back to what it was. I believe Boone is aware now that he has purchased a sensitive piece of land out there, and kind of has an idea of, with David's input, on what he can and can't do out there, and everything else would require some sort of filing before this board.
Okay. One of my big concerns is we really don't have a document that tells us where the 200-foot frontage of the river, or where the coastal bank is, or where the 30-foot no work zone is. Because anything done even within the 200 feet need to be approved by conservation. And to me, there was a lot of clearing of the underbrush all along the probably western part of the property. And what I did see grow back on the coastal bank were all those silly, mile a minute or whatever they're called, the briars. I didn't see any new blueberry bushes or anything else in there. I just saw invasives growing in very quickly. One of the things that could happen is that if this notice of intent is filed and accepted, there could be a process to remove those invasives manually, as opposed to just letting them grow and grow and grow. But that's my take on it. Carol, you were at the site. Anything to add?
No, I agree with you as far as the invasives go. As long as natural habitat grows back, as long as a natural vegetation that belongs there grows back, getting rid of those invasive vines, I think would be a good idea. You know, the briar bushes take over everything. So if that could be done manually with a notice of intent, that, I think that would be a good way to go. It would make it a much more attractive piece of property, and it would absolutely make it usable because you could get through it.
Yeah.
But, it's hard how do you delineate the 200-foot no work zone? Do you do it linearly from, say, directly above the riverbank straight back where it goes up a bank? You can't measure it on the ground. How do you measure it?
Well, that's partially why, having an engineered site plan is important, because you can clearly see those demarcations, and it is measured horizontally. So if you're, it's not measured up the hill as 50 feet and then across. It's like,
okay,
you draw a point straight up in the air and you go 200 feet back from that.
Okay.
So that's, again, why, in my opinion, there should be a notice of intent submitted with an accurate site plan. And in terms of the coastal bank revegetating, yes, I think the coastal bank will revegetate over time. It might take a long time for it to get back to what it was. So I, again, would suggest some plantings to enhance it. again, that also serves as wildlife habitat, which has been altered, in my opinion, in terms of what it used to be. And so it should be replanted to some degree. I'm not saying he has to plant every square inch of it, but I think a few plants should be required to be put back in there to help it along so that it does revegetate quicker and with vegetation that you want versus invasive material.
And that could be covered under the notice of intent,
Yes,
correct?
correct.
Do you want to vote as we recommend a notice of intent or a notice of intent? Do you need a vote from us?
Well, I mean, it's just a directive of the commission. If the commission says you want to see a notice of intent filed, then that's what has to happen. And the commission can place a time frame on getting something submitted, as we've done on other cases. And if that doesn't happen, then fines would be assessed. If that's the commission's
Okay,
determination.
Ron, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that there's definitely a lot of different things going on at the property, obviously with the, cutting of the underbrush, the stockpiling of materials that I don't believe was there the first time that this violation came to us. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave. That was new, right?
Yes, that's new. Yeah.
No,
So
no,
obviously, additional issues came up at the site visit. I mean, I think a notice of intent should be in order, and giving, I don't know that it'd be a long window of time, but a window of time, and if not, like to Dave's point, is issuing a daily fine until it comes into compliance.
Boone, did I hear you say that pile on the east side isn't new?
correct. That was there when, well, there was a small pile, but Dave never went out there before. So that was, so I'm sorry, we're jumping sides of the island, sides of the topic now, but that whole portion of the property was used as a staging area or a holdover yard or a material yard or whatever you want to call it, long before I bought the property. When I moved in,
Okay,
that was all cleared and it was used for a leaf dump and a wood chip pile. And the previous owner had a pile of asphalt there for the driveway. And there was a pile of trash and stumps and everything else. And all I've done since I've been there is clean some of the stuff out and put more stuff there. That I haven't changed anything. It was all pre-existing. I have a new pile of wood chips that wasn't there before, yes, but I put it in the same place that there was a pile of wood chips. And
okay.
Dave was out when you and Dave and Carol were there. I showed Dave the old wood chips that have been there for, I don't know, 5 years. It was all decomposing.
Okay.
So
I would say I don't think there was any.
apologize.
I was just going to say I don't think there was anything there to the degree that there is now. I mean, those piles.
Well,
I've walked down there previously during when I was there to see the initial violation, and there might have been some old, debris and whatnot there previously, but nothing to the extent that there is now.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to go into the violation on the eastern side. I'm going to continue with the request for a notice of intent for the coastal bank that was cut. Let's stay on that for
Sorry, that was my fault.
until we get
I
the
brought
rest
that
of
in.
No, that's all right. So anything else, Ron, on the initial violation?
No, I mean, I think, there's
Carol.
definitely, so we're good there.
I'd like to see some plantings go in that would be non-invasive. So yeah, I think a notice of intent should be filed.
Okay, Jim?
I agree with the notice of an,
Mary?
Yeah.
And I do too. So we're looking for, I expect that notice of intent to be the total property. So we all know where the 200-foot riverfront is and where the wetland lines are. And then we can talk about the violation that the addition of material to the coastal bank on the eastern side. Is that a way to put? So Boone, you're saying that they existed before, but not as big as they are now.
Correct. And it wasn't like big as in, like, I didn't overstep the footprint that was there. I just made tall piles. And I can move them. It's not a big deal. It'd take me a couple hours to move the 2 piles that are on the coast or that are near the coastal bank. It's not a big deal to move them. I offered to do that when Dave was here. And he said, no, just leave it until we have the meeting. So moving them is not a big deal. But back to the western side where I cleared the underbrush. So can I understand a notice of intent a little better when you say that?
Yeah, so what that entails is having an application submitted and a plan of the site to do whatever project is going to be proposed. So in this case, it would be to plant some supplemental plantings along that disturbed coastal bank and possibly within the riverfront area once we know what the extent of that is. Because again, we don't even know that at this point because we don't have a plan. So the site plan would come submitted as part of the notice of intent application.
So when you guys say a site plan, that's a piece of paper with a picture drawn on it showing where the coastal bank is and where the plantings will be, correct? Or are you saying I need to have the entire property surveyed?
You would need to have the property surveyed to have an accurate plan, yes.
So the section of
We
property.
need to know where the,
And Boone, I don't think it needs to be the
Sorry.
entire, it doesn't need to be the entire property necessarily, but it has to include the area that, where the violation occurred. And it's now going to have to include the area where the stockpiling area occurred. At least those things. And realistically, you know, for your own benefit, you should know where these boundaries are for the rest of the site so that you don't end up with violations on other parts of the property because you didn't know where you should or shouldn't be.
So here's my thing though. So to have the property surveyed is a huge expense. And I don't plan on doing any more work near the coastal bank. So
Well,
I don't.
You said that at the last time.
What, I didn't do any new work near the coastal bank. I worked in a pre-existing area. That's the thing. And I can move the piles. That's not a big deal. So there won't be any continued work. But it's pre-existing anyway. So I don't understand what the problem is.
So pre-existing, just because it was pre-existing when you bought the property doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't a violation then.
So the way Dave explained it to me when he was out is if something was pre-existing, that it's not a violation, because we were looking at the neighbor's property across the way and he mowed right down to the edge of the wetland and has grass growing. And Dave said, yeah, that might be a violation nowadays, but when it took place, it wasn't a violation. So we can't go after him now for something that happened in the past.
But something that might have been considered a violation that just wasn't discovered. So in other words, you know, it wouldn't have been an allowed use to stockpile materials on the coastal bank. You know, that might have been an activity that was done that we never knew about. And so that just means that it could have been an undiscovered violation, I think is what Ron's saying. So in adding to it and making it larger, which is what's been done, is obviously beyond what would be allowed in today's regulations.
But I didn't make the area larger. I made the pile larger. but I
Well,
didn't.
that's part of the violation, is adding more to the area that's in the commission's jurisdiction that shouldn't be.
But that whole area is cleared and used as whatever we want to call it, a stockpile yard. Prior to me buying this place, prior to you guys seeing it, like who knows, it could have been there for 100 years. So I can continue to use it like that now, correct?
No, you can't, because you've turned it into a much bigger issue in terms of the volume of material you're placing, and you have pushed material closer to the coastal bank than what I saw previously. I didn't see anything pushed that close to the coastal bank or over it slightly. So, that's the issue. That area can't be utilized in the way you're going to be supposedly using it. You could maybe do something like that somewhere else on the property, but just not right in that area.
Right, but it was there previously. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't encroach any on the coastal bank. I used the area that was there. I made the pile bigger. Yes, I'm totally on board with that. I made the pile bigger. I made it taller. I made it wider. But I didn't go any further towards the water.
Well, I'm not sure that I agree, and it's hard to say because we, didn't scrutinize that area in detail previously to know exactly what was there and what wasn't there.
Right,
When
so
I walked there previously, I don't recall seeing anything close to the size of the pile and the alteration that's there now.
But that's if this was a court of law, I'd say that's hearsay. Like, that's not neither here nor there, whether or not you remember it being there. Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it was there.
Well,
again,
that's what
because
you're
you don't
saying.
remember it doesn't make it law.
Right, but what you're saying is it was there. Your viewpoint, it was there. We don't know that what you're saying is correct either.
Right, but it's my property. Like,
We're
I
going
have more
around in circles.
experience with it than you
Excuse
do.
me, gentlemen. Excuse me. We're
Yes,
going
ma'am.
around and getting nowhere.
Right.
Do you plan to clear the underbrush from the rest of your property,
No, ma'am.
Boone?
No, ma'am.
So the area that's cleared around the trees is the extent of what you're going to clear for the underbrush.
Yes, ma'am.
So if we are looking for a notice of intent, it's to identify the wetland boundaries and the 20-foot river frontage, 200-foot river frontage from the area that has been cleared around the house to the area that is currently being discussed of the stockpiles? Is that the extent of the notice of intent, Dave?
Yes, I would say that's correct.
So the section closest to your driveway leaving the property would not be included in the notice of intent because you're saying you're not going to plan to do anything to that area.
Correct. Here's the bottom line. I have no problem planting anything there. Like, I love trees. I want to plant trees all over the property. Like, I have a majority of pine trees. I'd like to plant maples and hollies and oaks and, fir and locust and everything else. But it's not that I have a problem replanting, because the whole reason I cut that down was because it was all invasives. So replacing the invasives with beautiful bushes or trees or whatever is great. That's music to my ears. That's what I would like to do. The problem I have is paying Brian Grady or Bill Madden GAF an exorbitant amount of money to have my property mapped out so that you guys can tell me what I can and can't do. Like, that doesn't make sense. I know what I can and can't do. I know I have to stay, so far away from the water and so far away from the coastal bank, and I'm going to do it. Like, can I have a site plan drawn of mitigation or mediation, whatever the correct term is, to show the plantings? And that's it?
Well, the problem, I think one of the main,
property.
And everybody
survey.
agrees to, sorry,
I was just saying it's 17 acres to
did
to
you have
delineate-
a survey done when you bought the house?
No. It's a huge expense and the previous owner didn't want to pay for it and I couldn't afford to pay for it, like for no reason.
well, see, I think the problem though is since then, we've had a violation now. Had you not created a violation there, we wouldn't be looking for you to do a survey. But you have done that, and so therefore we have now to try to correct the problem, and as part of that, unfortunately, requires a surveyed site plan. That's just the nature of things. So if you cause these problems, you have to be prepared to deal with the consequences of that, and that's part of what filing a notice of intent is.
You're acting like I broke the law. I mowed
You
some brush
did.
on my own property. I didn't
You-
break any laws.
Yes,
you
you
give me a
did.
law book? Do you guys walk around and hand out law books for conservation to every new homeowner in Wareham when they buy a property? No, I didn't break the law. I didn't kill somebody on my property or steal something or shoot somebody. Like, what are you talking about? I mowed some invasive briars and brush, and that's fine. I understand what I did was wrong, and I'm willing to mitigate it. But I'm not willing to throw money out the window because you want to see what my property looks like. That's ridiculous.
Dave,
If you want to see what it looks like, you pay for the survey, Dave.
Dave, is it possible to have just the area that is in violation surveyed?
Yes, that's what we already discussed.
About.
We're not asking for the
From
17
area
acres.
Of the, no, from the area that has been mowed around the front of the property where the house is to the back area on the east side with the piles, that is where we need to define where the wetland lines are.
Let me
And it
just
has to include the house because it could very well be that we all have to be on the same page to know where these lines are. And the only way to do that is a notice of intent.
Yeah, this is Brian at GAF. I see where Boone's coming from, and I think what he's suggesting is, rather than paying our exorbitant fees, thanks for that, Boone.
You guys are worth it, but
would that money be better spent towards direct mitigation? Yes, Boone needs, I think he knows where the resource areas are now. He's not planning any additional work. The violation has occurred. Someone such as, a wetland scientist could get out there and prepare a mitigation plan. And I think that could be done giving you the mitigation that you require and still protect the environment. It's not a definitive plan that's going to give you the riverfront areas. I think we know that the vast majority of the property is covered by coastal bank, riverfront area, 100-foot buffer zone, 30-foot no disturb buffer zone. Right now, Boone has no additional work proposed. As he said, it would be pretty straightforward and easy to get rid of that wood chip pile. That could be gone tomorrow. The other pile in that area, that has been a staging area, best I can determine from some aerial photographs. It makes sense that there was a staging area to support that boathouse. So he can continue to use that area, but Dave's correct. Yeah, you can't, double, quadruple the size of your piles, and he would have to limit his activities in that area and relocate his staging area elsewhere on site. But I think that's what Boone's coming from is, there might be a midpoint here to get a wetland scientist to prepare a planting mitigation plan based on the violation that has occurred, and giving the commission the conclusion that they need, mitigation and restoration planting. Maybe some things would be absent as far as, okay, Boone still doesn't have a definitive idea where the resource areas are, but I think just walking out there, they're quite obvious. You know, you got that marsh, and it goes right up into an upland slope, which is a coastal bank, to a forested area. So I think that's where Boone's coming from. I don't particularly see that as maybe not a path to consider. It gets you the mitigation that you require. It protects the environment, and seeing that Boone has no additional work planned right now, obviously, if he does, we will come back with that, with a detailed plan and survey for any new work that he might want to do further down the line.
So what I'm hearing, Brian, is that if we were to request a restoration and mitigation, mitigation and restoration plan by a wetland specialist or something,
Correct. You know,
and
they can
ask that
identify.
the two particular piles at the staging area be removed from.
You're cutting out, Sandy.
Sorry. Huh? I'm cutting out.
Yes.
What I'm hearing is that a mitigation and restoration plan by a professional, the removal of the two piles in the staging area, and I would add that conservation be allowed to visit the site at least twice a year to check on any other violations in lieu of a notice of intent.
Well, one thing I would
Did
say.
I cut out on that one?
No, but one thing I would say is without any kind of an accurate plan, how do you know where the restoration is going to have to take place, the extent of it? How are you going to know where you would or wouldn't allow certain other activities to occur? You don't have an accurate site plan to work with. So you're just guessing at those things. That's the whole reason why you need to have an engineered plan when the notice of intent is being submitted, so you have something accurate to work with both now and into the future. Again, you know, I'm not trying to pick on Boone specifically. We do this for every violation that requires a notice of intent for either restoration or for a project. That's just what's done.
My thought is, so how far do we let it go? So this one particular instance, if we were to deviate from the process, so the next person that happens to have a violation, do we deviate for them? So where does it stop? That's my concern, is if we were to allow that to happen, well, the next person that has a violation and we decide to go the actual process, and then they say, well, you know, in history's past, you did this for this property owner. So that's my biggest concern about that, is deviating from what should happen, and you know what might happen could affect violations down the road, and not necessarily in the path that they should go.
Okay, so notice of intent from the area that was mowed and the staging area, is that would be the limit of the notice of intent?
Yes.
And that we would visit the site every once in a while to make sure that nothing else has changed on it. If we find more violations, then we would ask for a full notice of intent for the whole property.
So,
Boone, are you all right with that?
No, I'm not all right with Dave Pichette coming on my property whenever he wants, you know, for an, you know, unlimited extended amount of time, like with no time limit on it. If you guys are gonna make me get the notice of intent, like it is what it is. I guess I can't fight it. I've tried my hardest. Not giving
But
this
if we
person.
give you a notice,
Right.
if we ask for, sorry, if we ask for notice of intent for the two areas we just talked about where they were mowed and the staging area be the limit of the notice of intent, but there has to be some consideration for coming to review that no more work has been done. Maybe Dave calls ahead of time saying, I'm coming out,
Yeah, I mean, that's
as
fine.
opposed to just coming.
That's fine if, there's a time limit set on it, like once the notice of intent and the survey are filed and we do the mitigation and you guys are satisfied, then it's done. Yeah, if there's a time limit on it, but I'm not
Well, to answer your question, Boone, there would be a time limit. Once the work is complete and you get your certificate of compliance stating that everything's been done the way we want, then that's the end of it. Then I don't go out there anymore.
okay. I thought she was suggesting that we do it forever.
No.
Well, no,
I
it wouldn't be done
thought it
forever,
was.
and as was just previously stated, there's a process to follow, and under the notice of intent process, there are site visits that are a normal process of the commission or the agent, and I expect that those processes would be followed.
Right. And
That's
then
what
once everything's
everyone's
done,
referring to.
right. And then once everything's done and the commission sees that Boone has done everything that was asked, he gets his final sign off, which is a certificate of compliance. And that's it. Then I don't go back out there anymore unless Boone invites me out there just to have a beer or something. No, but that's the process. So once a certificate of compliance is issued, Boone, then that's the end of the process. We wouldn't have reason to go back out there unless there was some report of some other thing, and then I would have to contact you and get your permission to go out there. I can't just show up unannounced and start roaming around out there.
You already did that once.
Well, you weren't the owner of the property then.
You didn't get his permission either.
Yes, I did. I spoke to him.
Yeah, but did he give you permission?
He did.
Hey, regardless, Brian, do you see where we're asking for a notice of intent to cover the area that was mowed and the staging area by the boathouse?
Yes. Yes, I understand.
Boone, are you all right with doing the notice of intent for those two areas only?
Sandy, honestly, I'm not all right with any of this, but I guess this is the state I live in the time in the world.
I know you're not right with.
So
yeah,
it is what it is.
But
I know.
But Ron is right. We have to be consistent.
For the record, I do not agree with any of this.
Okay.
You're buffering out again,
Do
Sandy.
we put a time frame on when we, sorry. Do we say the notice of intent is to be filed within 3 months? Unless it snows?
I think 3 months is a reasonable amount of time for the notice of intent.
And then put in a stipulation that if it's not within 3 months, then obviously fines would be incurred at a daily rate of whatever is within our jurisdiction.
Well, unless the weather and snow prohibits the work from being done.
Correct.
So whoever is the engineer on it would come to us and say, we need an extension for another month or month and a half until the snow melts.
Why not just put it in now, instead of coming back and forth?
I thought you were gone.
You came back.
Welcome back.
She came back. She heard the
I'm
she
not
heard the
voting on
rumblings.
this issue. I didn't hear the whole thing, but as far as dates, why don't we just put it so that we know the date can be, and so it's not an issue?
Well, I think the consideration in part of us helping with what's going on is obviously there's a cost that's going to be incurred in this. I don't know what that cost is. I'm not the engineer. I'm not any of that. So giving 90 days, pending no weather issues, I wouldn't want to say, hey, I want a notice of intent in 30 days because it might not be feasibly financially able to be done that short amount of time. That's my only concern.
It does get expensive.
So I think 90
And
days.
if something cannot be done within, yeah,
But that would be up to, obviously, the engineer to propose that. It wouldn't come from Mr. Ferry himself. It would have to come from the engineer, the one that's doing the work.
all right. We did ask around and the commission wanted a notice of intent. We identified the notice of intent to be the area that had been mowed and the staging area. And we're looking at it being filed within 3 months unless an extension is requested because of weather. I'm not going to ask for a vote, but I'm going to ask if you agree with that. Ron,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Jane,
and I do.
I don't know that. By the way, I can learn your voice.
Alexa, stop.
Tell Alexa to stay out of this business.
Okay. Dave
very
Pichette, all
good.
right with that?
Yep, I'm all set. Thank you.
Boone, I know it's not all right with you.
Should have
Okay.
bought land in Maine.
Next order
All right, thanks,
enforcement
Boone.
order, please.
The next enforcement order was Scott Vaggart, and that was the site up at 34 Point Pleasant Circle where a violation has occurred. I sent an enforcement order there, and I just recently got it returned to me from the post office as being unclaimed. So I will have to now send that through a constable to get delivered, as obviously the owner is not picking it up. So that's the next step I'll take with that. So I don't have anything new at this point to report on that particular
So
issue.
what was that violation again, Dave? Just refresh my memory.
Yeah, that involves, this property's on White Island Pond, and the property owner basically constructed sort of a retaining wall down by the beach and then sort of backfilled it with crushed stone. And
Okay, yeah, now, okay, I remember now. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So definitely a violation. I actually had the building inspector call me and said, "Hey, I was just out this area yesterday and I saw this wall. Are you aware of it?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm aware of it." So he said he could tell it looked brand new. So I don't have anything other than that to report on that particular issue at this time, and I'll put that back on the agenda once I've verified that the owner has received the enforcement order.
At the last meeting, you mentioned Chuckleberry.
Sherbuck Lane.
Where's that place down? Who? Chubbuck.
Sherbuck. Yes, by Point Independence Yacht Club.
They are dumping. I don't know whether or not anybody can see.
hold it back.
Yeah, hold it back a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
It might be tough to see, but it's like it's a wide length of soil. I can't, you may not be able to see how high it is in the photo, but it's,
Dump loads.
Yeah, we can see it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's definitely a dump pile.
Be putting that to our enforcement orders.
Yes, I will be sending an enforcement.
Dave, did you get out there to look at it?
I did, yeah. So I'll be
Okay.
sending an enforcement order to the property owner to try to get them to attend the next meeting.
This place is hard to find. It's a little unmarked side road off of Maple. It took me a while.
My best recommendation would be just to go, when you take that first right down, I'm sorry, when you take that right, off, take like an immediate right. It's almost like a dirt road, and it'll like maybe twist down to your left, and you'll see it immediately on your right. You can't miss it. That would be my best recommendation. Right, Sandy?
Yep. Okay, is there anything else, Dave, before we say the magic words?
No, I don't believe so, unless anybody else on the line has any questions or whatever, because there's still some folks on the line.
I see Nancy and Kathy are still here.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
if not, then
Somehow, somewhere down the line are,
yeah, I don't have anything else, Sandy.
somewhere down the line, we will get those 150 and 140 Tyonet roads done. Does anybody else have anything before we say goodnight?
I got one thing.
Okay.
Motion to
Someone
adjourn.
say the magic words, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Someone?
Second.
I have a motion. I heard a second. I heard it. Ron,
Absolutely.
Carol,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Sandy. We're adjourned.
She just fired right through them names. She wasn't waiting for the yeses. She was like, bing, 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 bing.
And
You're
I'll have documents to sign by 9:30 tomorrow for anybody who can make it into the office.
Okay.
I will try to get there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Good night,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks a
Good
lot.
night.
Good night.
Stay safe.
Yep. Take it easy.
Take it easy, guys. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, you guys have a good night.
Night, Dave.
Take it easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.